Welcome back and welcome also. This is our Certified DevOps Engineer training program, and this is our roadmap. According to roadmap, we have already completed our Dev 1 Linux for DevOps part, and today we are going to start by fundamentals of the DevOps. And as usual, it's my volunteer work, free of charge, free of cost, to support the people, those who are entering into the IT. So that's why this training I do as a volunteer. Those who are join our training, they can do this, scan this QR code and join our trainings like you did. And today also we have the uh, attendees, okay, who have saw and our videos and join today's session. So before I go ahead and talk about the today's agenda, I would like to really acknowledge from my bottom of heart I would say, okay, all these guys, these are not just feedback. It's their time, and I really appreciate and we really thankful for their kind words on the feedback. So I would not say the feedback; it's the time which you gave us. So really, thank you for that. And so, what we will cover today now, how we play here, right? So we start with very basic things, right? And gradually we will increase our level. Okay, so very first we start talk about the very basic things, fundamental things, right? Of course, once you get into the job, then you really don't care about this, right? So but you, from my perspective, I always believe if your fundamentals are clear, then nobody is going to stop you. So in this part, we will start with the very basic things, right? And then we will go ahead and see what are the DevOps stack, what kind of tools we have, what technologies we have. Then once we understand those things, then we will go ahead and see the how pipeline looks like, because we have to create the pipeline. And before going and jumping into that, and when I use we have to some problem in CI, then you don't know what is CI means, what is CD means, right? So we will do, and I will also finally touch upon the security part as well. So here I would specifically talk about the DevSecOps part, right? So as you already saw in our training landscape, so we will be having DevSecOps training, right? And here this will be a part of, so like based on the feedback you guys provided. So not only we included the interactive quizzes, but also interview questions as well. So as time comes, I will share with you guys what kind of question can be asked on the topic. I also give interview, I also take interview, I also involved in recruitment part. And additionally, this part, I mean, today's session is completely theory, but I will show you the amazing things today which you will not get anywhere. This is not just the session. I also did my research, and I my specialization in software engineering. So of course, I'm not gonna teach you software engineering, but as a DevOps perspective, or what important information you should have, right? So that will be discussed about. So more specifically, in this part, I will talk about the SDLC, which stands for Software Development Lifecycle. Then we'll go and look into the what kind of methodologies we have. Then we talk Waterfall Model, Agile, and the DevOps. And then we will wrap up this section by the key concept and the summary. All right. So let's quickly jump into why I put this topic first, right? So because we are aiming, or we are going to work later on with the software industry, right? So that's why we must know before working, okay, to whom we are working with, which team involved into the how project, or how the software actually built, right? So as a DevOps engineer, maybe later on, you, if you are interested in and you think, okay, I'm very much good in project management, you can move into the project management later, right? But again, we will not talk about here the any project management related. But as a DevOps engineer, you are in a meeting and somebody is saying, okay, we are in a planning phase, or we are doing analysis. Then you know who is doing analysis, what analysis means, what happened actually in analysis, right? So this is very simple, the way, right, how the software is developed from in. and how it is delivered to the end user, right? So everything is over here. So let's consider a very simple example. I think this is very easy. We can correlate with this one, right? So let's consider we are going to build online food delivery app, right? So in this, what happened? We understand SDLC using this example. So very first thing, what you do when you have idea, right? So it's very similar like we do in our real life. For example, if you want to go on any of the trips, so very first thing you have something in your mind, okay, I want to go somewhere. So you talk with your friend and say, okay, let's go somewhere. Then your friend asks you, okay, where you want to go and where should we, like that, right? So similarly, in planning phase, the question is what's the goal, what we want to achieve, right? So in planning phase, the project management team involves here. The project management team decides, okay, what kind of resources they need, how many people they need, what's the budget of they required, how many, for example, do you have really sufficient developer in place or not, or company has to hire more people, right? So budgeting and also the timeline. So here the people, those who involved, actually they are already work on the things, right? They know based on their prior experience what kind of resources they needed, right? I In my experience I didn't see anybody who is just fresher and working as a project manager, right? So these are not the thing, these are really required your past experience, because when you do planning, and yes, as I said, yes, planning is really important, but no planning is perfect, right? So in this phase, basically we do the resource planning, we do the budgeting, we do the timeline, okay, how long it will take, and all these things related to planning done in this phase. Then next we come to the analysis phase. Once we have planning, then we do the analysis, and in this the business analysis team comes into the play, right? Then they think, I mean, they look at the planning, and they do the analysis, and they think, okay, whether this project, they evaluate whether this is feasible or not, and all kind of the analysis, this is done by the analysis team itself, right? But in general, so let's say when I plan for this curriculum for this, or not to curriculum, that's a university word, but when I plan, okay, what kind of or what topic should I include, so when I was planning, at the very same time I was also doing the analysis, right? So I want to go ahead with the version control system, okay, so like Linux, the very first part, we get very good feedback from many of the our viewers, right? So I thought, okay, let's first talk about the basic things, and then I also think, okay, should I include the Linux or should I not include the Linux? Then at the very same time, when I was planning, so at the very same time, I was also analyzing the thing, okay, because many people don't know, right? Linux, and Linux is very, I would say, the foundation of rest of the all the tools we are going to use. We will be using the Linux. We will be configuring everything on the Linux, right? So in that way, I plan as well as I analyze. So no harm if I say, okay, planning and analysis as a one phase, right? So this is the phase we are talking about. And here, project management team involved, they do the planning and analysis. This might be a case when you go and work in a company where there is no project management team at all, right? So in that case, what happens? I work, guys, so that's why I know, where you have not a very big company, right? Or you do not have many people. So where, let's say, the director, not the director, the your manager itself do the all this kind of stuff, right? So, but in general, what happened when project is really big, companies are really big, they have dedicated team for that, and inside the team they have many people, those who done, right? So we, as I said, this is not for, we are not talking about the project management. As a DevOps engineer, what we need to know, that's what today I'm talking about. So we are talking the software development life cycle, and we start with the planning and analysis, and who is involved in this. So in this, the project management team involved, and what is the major activities performed in this? In this, you decide the resources, you decide the budgeting, you decide the timeline, right? What's the scope of the project, and all these things will be completed in this phase, right? Once this is done, then let's move on to the next phase. And next phase is, okay, now is the design, right? So project management team, business analysts, they have done their work. Okay, they gather all the information from the client. Based on that, they do the planning, and they did already analyze. Now in this phase, what happened? So here the question is how it will look and work. So where architect, so maybe some companies have this, or like those who are big consultancy, right? So they already have a team of architects. There are so many architects over there. So when architect comes to the play, they decide, okay, how your end product will be looks like. So all the components. So for example, architect, it means the, in one of my project when I involved, so I work with the application, or I would say the soft in general software architect. One was the guy, and another from the infrastructure side, right? Some I don't remember exactly, database, yeah, one of the database architect, right? So this was the architect team was there, and they decide, okay, all this component. So all this component, it means the in our case, we took the example of our online food delivery app, right? So in this, how it will look when user will log in, then what happened, how it will collect the data from the user, where it will get stored, or how all the component will interact with each other, right? So once like you log in, you should be see the home screen, right? It should not be like that when you log in and you see the, okay, thank you for the login, or it says the logout, right? So it should not work like that. So all this kind of activity of the designing how your system will look and how your system will work, everything comes in this phase. I mean, all these activities perform in this phase, right? Additionally, UI UX designers, right? Those also involved in this phase, because sometimes what happens, instead of creating the entire product, they make kind of designs. And let's say your mobile app, right? So they use some tool, and they will create kind of design, and they give a demo to the customer or the client and say, okay, this is how your product will look like at the end. So it's a similar thing when we have, or when we buy a house. So the builder, the construction company, they also have some sample house ready, right? Or maybe some kind of prototype, or the model they have already created or built, and they put for the demo, right? So similarly here also, designing phase includes all kind of planning. I mean, not the planning, whatever plan, analyze, and after that, based on that, architect team, right, they create a blueprint. Then once our design is ready, then the fun begins. Here the developers, or I would say the development team, okay, they start coding, or the idea, or I would say the blueprint or the design which was completed in previous phase by the architect, right? So they take as a reference, they follow rigorously, and based on that, they start doing the coding, right? Or I would say they transform the idea into the real thing, right? So developers or development team involved, they start doing the coding, and this is the major activity happens in this. So far I have talked about three phases: planning and analysis. Second is the design, right, where architect comes into the play. Then third is the implementation, where coders or developers do the coding, right? Once our product, right, our product is code, right, after that, what happens, next phase comes like testing. So does it work right? So QA, or some companies says QA teams, or some companies says testing team, or quality assurance, all are the same, right? In this phase, whatever developer has done uh, their work, okay, the QA comes to the play, they do the testing on each and everything, right? Developers also perform the testing, but here we are talking about the QA team, right, the testing team. So we will talk more into details how it works, but we are just understanding the SDLC, the phases. So it's very straightforward. It says testing. It means we know we have to verify whatever work we have done, right? So far, analysis, planning, right? After that, design. Once design is there, developer start the following based on that design. Developers start doing the coding, right? So they transform the idea into the code, or real thing, I would say, the software, right? And after that, QA comes, QA test, and they said, okay, everything is fine. And what kind of testing is performed, we will also talk about later, but just high level, yes, QA, one of the team is there, QA, and they do the testing on the code, right? Once it is testers or testing team says, okay, all good, then it's time for the deployment, right? Where operations team is responsible for, right? In some cases, there are so many other teams is involved. I generally say, or in general term, I would say the operations team. Other teams like of course DevOps teams is also separate. We will talk more details into later on this in this session itself, right? So deployment team itself can be one of the team called as a deployment team. Operation team is a different. So all your network administrator, a Linux administrator, or the system administrator, right? Or everybody comes under the operations. Okay. So once it is tested, then we do the deployment, and it's a launch time, right? And once our application is ready, deployed, and it is being used by the users, then another phase is maintenance, right? So maintenance is very simple, where support teams uh, do a vital role. So for example, we we deploy our food delivery app, right? And some customer says, okay, we are not able to track our food. Then what you do based on the feedback, so this support team will read the email if the customer contacted via email or any other medium, and they forward this to again the planning team, and then planning team again start from very beginning to incorporate their features into the same. So they will do the planning and analysis, then the architect do the designing work. Then once design is there, then the development team do the coding. Then after the coding, testing team will do the test, and when testing is done, then the deployment team will be doing the deployment, and then we will be notifying the user, okay, thank you very much for your feedback, and then we have based on your feedback, we have done this thing. So this is the maintenance phase, right? Which is really, really important, because you build the software once, then you keep on maintaining the software. So depending on the company contract. So sometimes what happen, company simply says, okay, just develop a software for us, and we will do the rest our own. Okay, and sometimes company is very happy with the services, then they say, okay, let's keep continue our relationship, and you maintain further likewise, right? So depend. So in general, I would say simply all these phases. So we start very beginning, where we do the planning and analysis. Once it is done, then we have the design part, and when design is done, then developers do the coding, and once coding is done, then we have a testing. Then testing is done, then we have deployment, and once deployment is done, then we have a maintenance, right? So, and these processes keep on going, right? Very simple thing, nothing is very complicated. And I would also say, like, this phases, right, or here the terms which we used, like planning, analysis, design, implementation, testing, and maintenance, everything is also derived from our real life. Nothing is here rocket science, right? So we, if we have something, we do planning, then we think about this, whether should I do it or not. Once it is done, then we go ahead and do the designing, okay, how it will be. So like, it's kind of more imagination part, right? So for example, if you plan to go on the world trip, so again, right, so you do the timeline, okay, how long you want to go, how much your budget is, right? And you also visualize, okay, I will go first Europe, then I'll go US and Africa and Asia and so on and so forth, like, right? once you are done with these two things, then you start doing the implementation, right? Then you start booking your tickets, and you also make sure, okay, no mistake should be done or something. You read about the reviews and all this stuff, right? And but once it is there, the day will come, then you take a flight and you start doing this thing. And meanwhile, when you are doing and we are on trip, you also take experience. Okay, one place you visited, you kind of having some experience, then you aware about, or for the next places, okay, I should not follow these things, maybe not go out very late night or something like that. So this is very simple thing, okay, which is completely derived from our real life. Okay, so now any questions, guys? Okay, so as I say no question, then I will ask question. Okay, so before I go ahead, so very quick thing, we have 6 phases, right? Maybe sometimes you, if you search on the internet, you will find this analysis phase as a separate, right? That's why I showed you. So analysis and planning is the first, right? Then we have design, and once we have design, after that we do the implementation, we do the testing, we do the deployment, and we do the maintenance. And this thing, whole thing goes on and on, right? These are never ending things until project. Okay, I don't want to use that word. We will see that later. What is the last thing? Okay, guys. So, very first question: what does SDLC stands for? So, A option is software development long cycle, right? Option B says software development life cycle, and C option says software development learning cycle. Okay, Anish, Rakesh, Tarun. Thank you, guys. So, right, thank you very much for the participation. Let's see. Yes, of course, this is the phase, or this is the steps, right, which is involved to how we build the software, right? And I think this is defined in 1970s or something like that, but yeah, we are not interested in history. Histories are always good, right? Next question: which phase involves gathering user requirements and defining system objectives? So option A design, option B requirements gathering, and option C testing. Tarun. Okay, nice. Nice. Thank you. Thank you, Rakesh. Very nice. So, yes, a requirement gathering phase, right? Where we ask client, okay, what you want. So similarly, like if you ask, if you say your friend, okay, let's go on a trip. So immediately your friend asks, okay, where you wanna go? Or where should we go? Likewise, right? So here we collect as much as possible from the client, all the information. So which about this. Then we have during which phase is the software tested for errors and bugs. So during which phase we perform the testing. So option A deployment, requirement gathering, testing. Nice, nice Anish, nice Tarun, nice Rakesh. Rakesh. What about others? Okay, so let's see. Yes, thank you so much. After the implementation, the code is done, then we perform the testing in testing phase. Then we have a next question: what happens during the maintenance phase of the SDLC? The software is monitored and updated, and requirements gathering, option B, and option C says the final product is designed. Okay, Mitisha, very nice. Samar, very nice. Rakesh, Anish, very nice, guys. Three things. So software is monitored and updated, right? Very simple. Next question: which of the following is not a common phase in SDLC? Very good, Tarun. Samar, Mayank, Anish. Okay, very nice, guys. Of course. So first of all, this thing, very nice for participation. So yes, marketing phase is not. We know requirements and gathering. It's same like analysis and planning. The SDLC is general, the basic, right, for the development of the software. So we'll go ahead and learn about the more what kind of methodology. But yeah, designing phase is one where we do the designing and requirement gathering, and marketing is not the part of our, because that's a different part, right? So last question: SDLC is linear process with no iterative cycle. Mayank, Anish, Rakesh. Very nice, guys. Yes, so it's false, right? Because SDLC is not a linear process, right? It has phases. So don't think like because of I showed you the circular diagram here. The thing is SDLC is the best, right? It describes okay how you build your product. It gives you kind of approach to us, right? But it is not, we cannot say it's a linear because there are some more approaches over here. We are just going to see the next, where you are going to do this same thing in iterative way, right? So SDLC is the reference thing, right? It's not an approach. So thank you very much guys for participation. All answers are correct. Everybody has given the correct answer. Thank you. So it means yes, we are getting next thing. Now it's a development methodology, right? So now we know so far okay how we can develop a software, right? So software development life cycle. Okay, now we have to develop software. So here the methodology, it means simple. I mean, it's very tongue twisting word. So I would say that it's in simple English. It says these are the different approaches to build our software. Okay, so here we have so many approaches. We are not going to discuss everything over here. As I said, it's not software engineering class, right? But here I will give you just information. So here there are I put few, there are so many other as well, those who basically or they are master, they do the project management itself, or if you search for the project management methodology you will find more, right? So here will today I mean there is a one model which is called waterfall model, right? Another one is the agile. Then we have scrum, we have kanban, we have lean. So lean is basically they focused on the wastage less. I mean wastage should not be happened, or they control the wastage kind of, right? When we have spiral methodology, here we have DevOps. So and there are so more, right? There is a V model, and I believe there is what was that? Anyways, I forgot, right? So there is a V model is also there. There are so many approaches, but our focus for today is based on these three, and there is a reason to put all these three. So of course we are interested because we are talking about the fundamentals of DevOps, right? To know the DevOps, right? I would not say we have to go and learn the agile, right? But there are some key things which we should know, right? And we also should know why, I mean, what happened before the agile methodology, right? So it was, I think, 1970s or something, the waterfall, or maybe I don't remember exactly the year, but yeah, it is around 50 years old methodology, right? Or approach, right? And here I said the agile methodology, but people also say the philosophy. DevOps also the same thing, but as I before said, everything is correct in IT, nothing is wrong until and unless we know what we are talking about, right? So I think it came in 2001 and it came in 2008, right? So what kind of problem they solved, what was the problem before, and all these things, right? So we know how we develop a software. We have SDLC as a reference, right? Now we have to decide which approach we follow to deliver our product very good, right? Then let's start with the waterfall model. So in waterfall model, we know what we do in planning and analysis, what we do in design phase, what we do in implementation phase, what we do in testing phase here, then what we do. So we know once testing is done, when we deploy, and then we do the maintenance, right? It's very simple approach. We could say directly it looks like what we have here in SDLC, right? So waterfall model, it's very simple, right? Here what happened, everything. So here this, like when I talk about SDLC, I told you okay which team is involved in this, right? So here what happened, everything goes in phase or step by step. So once the planning team or analysis team or project management team, they have done their work, okay, after that, right after that, our next phase, design phase is a start, right? Once design is done, then implementation, so when developers start doing the coding. And similarly, once this is done, then testing is performed, right? And once testing is done, then the testing guys team says, given us a green, okay, everything is fine from our side. Then operation teams involved and they do the deployment. And once it is there, then the maintenance. Very simple thing, right? So it looks like similar to the SDLC. So there is a difference I would like to mention over here. SDLC is the reference, right? That is a model, or sorry, that describes the your software development lifecycle, where waterfall model is a approach to build your software. Okay, that also follows the, so any model, right, any approach you follow, the SDLC will be base for you. Okay, so here, very simple thing, it's sequential linear approach, right? It's very sequential. So once planning team and everything is done, I mean the analysis is done, then we, based on that, architect start creating a design. When design is done, then it's implementation, testing, deployment, and so on, right? But why it is called waterfall model? Because it goes sequence by sequence, right? Once one phase is done, or one stage is done, right, after that we move on to the next one, until and unless we cannot go back, right, or we cannot move ahead. So once planning and analysis done, then we the doing the architect or designing thing. Once we have that, then we do the implementation. And we, it means I'm talking about the development team. And once developer says okay, our work is done, then the project move on to the next phase, to the testing team, and so on and so forth. So here in this model, right, it is more than 50 years or 60 years, not 50, yeah, approx 60 or something, right? This approach was followed, and this model served the industry this long time, right? But there are some challenges over here. So let's say what challenge. So in case, so like as I said, it's very nice linear and sequential approach, right? So during the testing, for example, so like we found some issues, right, or any bug. So when testing team involved, right after this three phases, before that this team doesn't know what is going on, what they have to, or which project they have to work on, right? Because they don't know, because the developer didn't complete their coding, right? So once they complete, then it comes to the testing team. Then it comes to the testing team, and in this phase, right, when testing team identified very severe bug, then what happened, you have to go back to the very first phase, or I would say you have to start over the entire process again. You have to do the planning analysis, then planning analysis team will be completed their work, then it will go to the designing, then architect will modify it or adjust their designs, and accordingly the implementation, the developer will again modify their code, right? So in this approach it's fine. So what happened, for example, in software, yes, it's possible, but again you have to start over, you have to involve all the teams again, right? So it will lead you to the extend the time, cost, right? Because all the work you have to do again and again. So let's say first 6 month planning analysis team, planning and analysis team, or I would say the project team, they took 6 months to do the this phase, and after 6 months this phase happened, right? And after that this one happened, then this one happened. So when testing come, so like after 18 months the testing team will get the project, and meanwhile planning team forgot what they did the analysis. So when testing team asked, okay, throw back to them and say, guys, we found this, you should have been considered when you are doing the planning. And what happened, then planning team again read the document, because 18 months, who remember what I have written before 18 months, right? They will go back again with the planning and read the document, and they realize, okay, we did this thing, that they adjust the entire planning thing, right? So it's really time consuming, and it takes a lot of time. Similarly, what happened, I just give an example, but this bug can be found after deployment, right, during the maintenance, right? And severe bug, for example, in our food online food application, user is not or instead of logging, user just logged out, right? Or maybe he wants to pay let's say €1 or $1 bill, and instead of that it's paying 10. Then what happened, Of course, user will be the customer will be angry, right? Why this thing happening? So team has to go back and again doing the entire process since very beginning or from very start, right? So that's a major drawback of this problem. I mean, not the problem, this approach, but this does a very long time. But this is the problem as well as it also has some kind of advantages. So like when your requirement is very straightforward, very fixed. So let's say you are building a plane, you are building a spaceship, right? In that case, okay, I need this many big number of seats in there, or what kind of things, or maybe I need 6 floors or something like that. So my point here is when you have fixed requirement, right? Let's say you are starting, or maybe you are doing your school project, right? Or maybe university project, or maybe you start doing the freelancing work, and your client says, okay, I just need a static website, nothing else. Follow this waterfall model, gather all the requirements from the client, right, or your customer, and based on that just do the sketch, right, what with your website or the client website should looks like, show to the client, and then implement, start doing the coding, do your testing thing, do the deployment, everything is done, right? So where your requirements are not going to change or unlikely to be changes, or is at least in development phase, right? Then waterfall model best fit. Straightforward, easy to follow, sequential approach, nothing special. Okay, but here what happened, the client involvement. Okay, so as I said, planning and analysis, everything is done very initial. Okay, and after 2 3 years, once the company has completed their project and they said, okay, we have done our work, now it's your time, now you can check the product. Okay, so the client involvement was not here in this at all. So once it is deployed, after that the client again take a chance to review the product, and meanwhile for these 3 years client is not happy at all, or not impassioned at all. I mean, not the client was, or client is not happy. Okay, client does not have passions at all, because they are paying, they want to see something, what is happening, whether the company is making a spool, or whether they are really working or not, like that, right? So waterfall model has plus and minus of it. So remember, when you have very small things, your requirements are not going to change at all, then go ahead and use the waterfall model. But as I said, it's very unlikely that requirements are not going to change, right? Similarly, like when you see my previous slide, so I thought, okay, let's go ahead this way, and then I thought, okay, logo should be looks like this. So when start working on something, or when you have some idea, then day by day you get more and more ideas on top of that. So it's very natural, it is going to be happen, the requirements are going to be changed. Okay, or in more simplified way, I could say we do the plan, design, develop, test, and deploy, and maintain. Do you have any questions, guys, on this waterfall model? So this is the summary, right? Take a time, read about this, and always remember these are also important thing. Don't think these are not important, because when you are working, because when you work actually in the company, so actually when I started, I really didn't know, okay, what the guys do, right? So that's why I thought it's better to know from the very beginning to whom we are going to work with and what's their role. So that's why I just put short description, stages, and what's their responsibility. Okay, so no questions on this. So let's move on to the next approach. And next approach, it says the agile methodology. So where waterfall model is very simple, easy to follow, sequential approach, right? We do everything step by step. But the problem is, what's the problem? So problem is the customer is not satisfied, right? So customer cannot wait 3 years to see what is happening, right? So the new approach was introduced in 2001, and which says the agile. So as I says, approach, when you read on the internet, you will find that it's a methodology, right? So when people start giving their own opinion, or I would say the philosophy, right? They said, okay, instead of doing those things in this way, and that is based on our experience. So like in this session, I shared my experience. It doesn't mean you have to follow that, right? I'm just giving you my suggestion, or what I experienced. And then it's completely up to you, right? When Agile introduced or Agile came out, then people realize, yes, this approach, they, some people follow, some people didn't. And because some people wait, right? Okay, after sometimes let's other use the or consume the services, and based on their feedback, right, based on their feedback, we will consume the service, right? So similarly, Agile methodology was more on the customer satisfaction, right? You can see here also we are doing the same thing: planning, design, developing, testing, deployment, and maintenance, right? So here we have one more thing. And what is one more thing? One more thing is here we have review, right? Before, what we are doing in waterfall model or waterfall approach, we did not do any kind of review. Everything is done at the end, and we are delivering to the client, and client, after that, client gives, okay, I didn't ask for you guys this kind of my software, you have completely changed the vision, right? So as in agile approach, it's a iterative. That's why this is the logo says like this, right? And iterative, it means instead of taking all the requirements from the client at the very first time, we are asking a client, okay, what is really important for you at the moment, right? So we make our small goals and achievable goals, right, within the iterative side. So this is one iteration. Then we one thing, or let's say one feature we completed in iteration 1, then next feature we completed in iteration 2, then next feature we completed in iteration 3, right? And this iteration called sprint. In agile, sprint, right? This term you must remember. Okay, when you are going to work, right, then you will be hearing from the development team. And if your company has a cross functional team, then it may be you are working along with the developers. Will come when we look into the development, sorry, DevOps approach, you will get more idea about this. But now onwards, the points which I'm going to tell you, please remember. So sprint is simple iteration. Okay, so like every week we meet. Okay, so consider this 1 week as a sprint for us, right? So we decided, and we already decided, right? And based on that, we know, okay, on this week we are going to have this session, on next week we are going to have this session or another session. And we also analyze and do the previous our feedback, like we review what happened with the last time, right? So when I start, I ask, okay, do you have any questions? So, and similarly within a session itself, right after every part or every section, I ask you, okay guys, do you have any questions? So it's kind of review, right? Whether anything is there, if you have something you could ask. So similarly, is in agile, we follow the sprint, right? Kanban is also, so here is Scrum. Actually, it's a kind of approach, right, where you work. So next thing here, let's see what happened. So how do we work in this sprint, right? So in a sprint, what we do, very first time, we do the initial planning and requirement gathering, right? So instead of talking with the client of and asking for everything, we are just talking about, okay, let's see, let's first we start by the um, very in let's say the login of the user. Then customer gives us a requirement, okay, I want first thing, okay, the user should be logged in. And for login, it should take a user ID and password, and it should store some data into the database and do the authentication mechanism and all this, right? So this is initial. And based on that, we do the sprint planning, right? Once this sprint planning is done, then we have daily stand. So we plan, okay, in this week or in this sprint, we are going to do this part of the work, right? Let's say the login one, user login module, or user login, let's say module, it's fine. And throughout the week, we do meet every day, okay, and we talk, okay, what happened yesterday, do you have any problem? Everybody says no, all good. So like I'm doing all right after that. Every topic I finished, I ask you, okay, do you have any questions, any concerns, like that. So in this team, every day they meet, they talk about the things yesterday what they have done, right? If they have any problem, they immediately respond to each other, right? Then after the once the sprint is done, then we have review and retrospective. So review, it means everything is fine, then we deploy the application, we give the demo to the stakeholders. Okay, guys, we have completed this module 1, and now you can look it. Then the stakeholders, the product owners, they see, and they, because those are the people, they have the vision of the product, right? And according to them, if any everything is fine, if not, so in next sprint they do, they consider those feedback. Okay, and in next sprint they do the again they do the prioritize and also address the whatever feedback they have received in previous sprint, right? So this is what happened in review and retrospective. So retrospective is kind of meeting, and review is also kind of meeting, which happened during the when you follow the Scrum approach, right? So remember this term, in review and retrospective people. So review, it means what we have done, right? And retrospective, so in review, like you give the demo, you talk about the thing, okay, this is the product we have we have developed, right? And in retrospective we specifically talk about what went well, what went not well, okay, or what went wrong. So we talk about this, and based on that we decide how we can overcome in the next sprint. So for example, you have to configure as a DevOps engineer, right? You have to configure a cluster, Kubernetes cluster in a, let's say, any cloud environment, right? And to do that you need a kind of machine where you can configure, and those machines are not there. So you can say in that sprint, in retrospective, okay, I couldn't do this because, no offense to anybody, but just I'm giving you example, so don't take it literally, right? So maybe we didn't get a finance team approval, right? Or accounting team couldn't give us approval or give the finance or something like that, and that's why we couldn't buy a server. Just as hypothetically as a consider this situation. So this kind of frustration, okay, frustration is a very strong word. So this kind of, I would say, the challenges we could discuss in retrospective, and based on that discussion we can plan our next sprint, and that's what happened, right? And when we do the continuous integration and testing, and we do the deployment, and based on the deployment we have the feedback. So this is a kind of loop. I would not say the loop, but it's a iteration. In one iteration I'm working on very small part. Once it is done, it is delivered to the client, not the client, is stakeholders. We give the demo to them, they give feedback, they said everything is fine, let's go ahead. And now team decides, okay, in sprint 2 we will work on the restaurant menus. Okay, and in sprint 3 they said, okay, we will work on the let's the live tracking of the order, for example, right? So this is, all these things happen in iteration, one by one. Okay, instead of working or planning the entire project, we are planning on the small thing, right? And in this way everything is happen incrementally. So once we delivered feature 1, next week, let's say, ideally we delivered next feature in next week, then next week, and so on. So everybody is happy, we are getting time, and testers are also doing the testing very quickly. So we know, okay, if any problem is there, tester immediately give the feedback. So here agile brings people together to, they can talk with each other, they can say. That's why here is, there is a point, it says daily stand up. So in daily stand up they says, okay, I have a problem, or I'm blocked because of the other team, or maybe I'm waiting for the input from other guy, or like that. So everybody will be sync on the on the progress of the project. But here the problem is still, so in waterfall model all teams working separately. Then agile came, then agile bring development and testers together. So developers are doing the testing, testers are doing the simultaneously the testing on those features and giving the feedback to the development or developers, right? And at the end, doing the review of the work. So that's what happening. But still, the operation team was not part of this one or this approach. So that's where this is, I would not say this is failed approach. Okay, it will clear to you very soon, but here I will say yes, this is solve the some of the problem, or I would say the solve by the agile of the waterfall model. So but still I said waterfall model is also good when requirements are straightforward, nothing to change. And here you are doing an iteration, right? So let's say um, same example, spaceship, right? We have to launch a satellite. So can we launch satellite in sprint? It's not possible, right? We have to think everything beforehand, right? So our requirement, our planning, I mean, our requirement should be fixed, right? It can be here and there, but you cannot. So so instead of that doing that thing, what you do, okay, you plan everything all together. Or I would say, instead of talking about one specific approach, we do things in hybrid way. So hybrid way, for let me give you very simple example. The our entire plan, this training plan, right, it starts from this date and end with this date. So when that was planned, right, so I, let's consider I follow the waterfall approach. So I think, I plan, and so on and so forth, right? And after that, now we are doing everything, we are meeting every week, right? And we are talking about one session or one module at a time, and at the end we deliver everything, or I would say that we learn the everything, right? So we, I would say rather, we are working on one approach, we follow the hybrid approach. So it completely depends on you, or what kind of project you are working on, right? So but agile is specifically focused on the customer feedback, customer satisfaction, and it bring the development and testing together. So testing team and development team together, right? So that's why somewhere, if you heard, they said agile team, right? But again, it was introduced in 2001, and we are in 2025, and DevOps was also introduced in 2008. And I think DevOps is also old now, right? Mature enough. So what happened with the DevOps? So these are some points. I would not say mug up everything, but remember, these are the important point, because when you are working as a DevOps engineer, you are coming across with this sprint planning, developers, not the, if you are in a cross functional team, then of course you will be a part of this, right? So planning and all these things, sprint planning, daily stand up, review, retrospective, and what we'll do in next sprint, continuous integration, continuous testing, okay, and deployment and feedback and all these things, right? So remember, sprint is one term, review is second, retrospective, okay, third. Three things here, the important. Everything is important, but I want you to remember at least these things, okay? Any questions on this, guys? See, this is what I'm doing. It's a, now we are in review phase. Okay, so again, it's a summary for you, planning, design, testing, and all these things. And here you see, before, in planning in waterfall model, it was project management or project manager. Here we have product owners, right? Here we have developers. So QA, stakeholders. The stakeholders, it means those who are directly or indirectly involved in the project. So here it could be developers, testers, PO, product owner, scrum master, or maybe finance team, or maybe client as well, right? And deployment, here the team is responsible, is the operations. And retrospective, here why dash is because nowadays we are following the DevOps is also follow the same. So here everybody is involved in this, okay? Whereas retrospective, it means they are more collaborative, they are more communicate with each other, they share their own problems, okay, what happened with us, like that, okay? Then we have next approach, okay, and after this we will take a break. So let me quickly tell you what is there in DevOps. So we learned waterfall model. Waterfall model is sequential, right? Straightforward, step by step approach, right? Where agile is more iterative. So we are doing things in a small part, right? And in waterfall model, everybody was working in silos, right? That's why I put this name as a silos to synergy, right? And in agile methodology, in agile, or I would say the Scrum framework, okay, where development and tester. So if I say planning team, right? So in development, okay, I'll come to that later. So those bring those people together so they can give each other faster feedback, right? And so continuous testing was also involved into that. In case of DevOps, what happened? So here, this is kind of when you already aware about this, right? When you search on the internet, you find this infinite sign. Okay, so why this is so? So nobody claims it's official logo, but it is adopted. So like I also did many before that. Many people also. I don't know who started this, but nobody claims that it's my propriety or something like that. Okay, so here in DevOps, we also have the same thing plan, right? But DevOps is more on the philosophy or the cultural shift or the approach. When I heard this very first time, right? So if you read old documentation on the internet, you will find kind of, okay, DevOps is not a tool, DevOps is not a technology, DevOps is not a role, DevOps is not a position. Okay, all these things very, very long before. Okay, but nowadays, yes, we have a DevOps role, right? People work as a DevOps engineer, senior DevOps engineer, team lead DevOps. I work as a head of DevOps, right? Where I set up entire DevOps team, the department itself, right? So as time goes, time pass, things change. But initially, yes, this is not the technology. Okay, this is more on the philosophy. Okay, guys, you are doing this work, do in this way. Okay, like you are learning. So I'm just showing you here. Okay, you are learning, learn this thing first, then this thing and that thing, and then you will be having very good result at the end, right? So everybody has their own approach. So similarly, people came up with the idea, okay, agile bring testers and developers together and more focuses on the side of the customer satisfaction. Okay, customer is satisfied, but what happened? You are not able to deliver faster. So in DevOps approach, it says, okay, CI, it means continuous integration, and CD, it means continuous delivery. Some where you also find CD, continuous deployment, right? So I will clear you all this term and you will have very solid, or after this, you will be able to distinguish, okay, what is CI, what is CD. But DevOps is an approach, right, to shift your culture. I mean, whatever you are doing in a different way. In what way we are planning it? I mean, we are talking about it right now. Okay, but very quickly, I would say it also has the same plan. So in plan, like previously we are doing, here we also doing the same thing, right? Planning. Then we are doing the coding. So before there also implementation, here also based on the plan, we have to do the coding, right? And once coding is done, then we do the build. I will explain you all these things. Just bear with me. Okay. So build, it means simply what we are doing, or consider this as a part of the code. I will explain you what build means. Then we do the testing. Release, I will explain you. Okay, but just skip this. Don't worry about this two terms. Then you do the deployment, and once deployment is there, so monitoring, operating, consider as a monitoring part, right? So you start plan, you start code, you do the test, you do the deployment, and you do the maintenance. So here, instead of maintenance, we are saying operate and the monitoring, and all these things happen in continuation. Okay, so this part, right? This part, this side, plan, code, build, and test. Okay, all this part or all this activity belongs to a dev or development. So you could say, okay, why planning team comes considered as a dev? So in DevOps, no harm if you could say, okay, planning team is also, or testing team is also part of development, right? And all these activities which are over here, these are the, or this fall under the responsibility of operations team. And when I go next, so this part of this loop or this infinite sign is a continuous integration. I'll give you more insight about this as well. What is continuous integration? Give me a moment. And this side is continuous delivery. Okay, so DevOps focus on continuous integration and continuous delivery. Okay, and we combine both, and this infinite sign adopted as a DevOps. Okay, so where waterfall model. So now the thing is, what is DevOps, right? You may be heard, realizing since beginning I didn't talk about the definition. So guys, you will find the definition, so many definition on the internet. Okay, that's not my motto. My motto is, when you will be asked by the interviewer, okay, what is DevOps? So always answer like this: according to me. Don't say DevOps is like this. No, when you talk with the people, everybody has their own definition. Okay, once you, by the end of this our entire series of the training, you will realize and you will form your own definition. I guaranteed you, if you just watch or not watch, if you find or search on the internet, write the definition, understand that, and once you are done with this training, and then again look at that definition, and you will write your own definition. Okay, so we don't have to stick with the book or the definition. Of course those are standard, but when you are describing, as I said, nothing wrong in IT. When you are describing and it really give a sense of what was talked or you're talking about, like if I say, okay, 2 plus 2 is 3, will you agree with me? No, right? If I say, okay, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals to 4, then you agree with me, yes, the result is 4, right? So it's the same thing, right? But it's completely on you. So whenever you are interviewing, I mean, it is, and it's definitely asked, and in this session your screening round of DevOps interview questions will be addressed. Okay, very first 5-10 minutes the interviewer asks you, you will get all the answers in this. So careful, I mean, pay attention. So here DevOps is, I would say, the extension of the agile methodology, but right, it's extension, but it focuses more on continuous integration and continuous delivery. Because when you do everything iteration, right? So what happened in waterfall model, we are deploying everything on the, once our, we said, okay, we done. And so again, take an example of our food delivery. Then we said, okay, we have already infrastructure team. Then IT or that software team, they will deploy the code on our server, and that will be final one. In agile approach, they said, okay, they keep on building the new features and keep on giving us the feedback. And instead of giving it to the, or deploying it to the final or live, they give the, let's say, the staging environment or developer. So for example, you are doing something on your local system, that is your local or development environment. When you push it onto the server, okay, and that server is accessible to limited people, consider this as a staging environment. And you are happy with that, then you, instead of giving access to limited people, you make it public. That is live, and that is called production system, right? So in agile, we are doing deployment in staging or development, I would say. Okay, we are not doing in the final or the live place, where a stakeholder can see and give their feedback, but still product is not able to use, or not in a state can be used by the end user or the final client. So let's say you You code, you build, you test, you release, you deployed, and after that immediately you are able to or your final, or maybe final or end user is able to apply the not apply the order the food online, right? If that can that if that is the case, which is not possible in your agile approach. So that's why, according to me, DevOps is an extension according to me DevOps is an extension of the agile approach, where DevOps is more focused on continuous integration and continuous delivery. So what I mean by continuous integration, I'll explain you in the next part when we talk about this stack, DevOps stack, okay, and continuous delivery, okay. Here also very common interview question: what is different between CI/CD? What is difference between CD and CD? So continuous deployment and continuous delivery. So I will answer you, but DevOps is more on the continuous delivery. It means your code is always in a state of deployable. Once you deploy, it can be directly used by the end user, right? So that is the idea behind the DevOps, okay. And one more thing over here in DevOps. So if you want to do or deliver something continuously, you need some kind of tool, right? And those tools helps you to achieve, or I would say you need kind of automation, and to do automation you need tools, right? And those tools will help us to achieve what DevOps says. So DevOps says continuous delivery, so delivery must be faster. As soon as developer has commit the code, or I would say done with their code, that particular code is be available to deployed in directly to the production. That's the philosophy of DevOps, and that's what DevOps is about. And in general, you could also say, okay, DevOps, so development and operations is also two different team. Since, so I would not say the two, it's many teams over here, right? We have many teams. We already saw who involved in planning, who involved in code, who involved in test. So that's why we could say we instead of considering them multiple teams, we are considering this as a one team, okay, and this is as a another team. When you talk in the perspective or of agile, yes, it's different, okay, because agile bring all these guys together, not this one, right? But DevOps was the it brought the game to the next level. It says, okay, why not everybody? And they are more collaborative, more communicative. Since beginning they talk with each other, everybody is involved into the project, and everybody knows what they have to do. And as I said, when I set up this DevOps department, I um uh, yes, it was hard, right? Because when you make changes somewhere, people really not easily adopt the changes, right? So if you maybe I don't know, so far it's still the development and the operations team, or now we have DevOps team, and they are helping or supporting to many developers. But in future, so like DevOps says, okay, dev and ops or DevOps, so it means now developer will do the operations work and operation guys will do the developers work. So guys, it is not possible at the moment, but in future I'm not wonder at all, because like now the time, okay, you are studying everything. If you are in university, right, or you are just passed out, you're fresher, you no experience, so you learn the programming language, right? You learn uh, the cloud, you learn the other Kubernetes containerization, right? You're also learning this automation. So maybe you get very good package and company says, okay, I want you to do everything. So you said, I know everything, I will do. And by the time you will be expert. So after 20, 30, 50 years, no wonder one people, or I would say there would be no separate team. Okay. So maybe one person is all rounder, can be doing everything, or might do everything, right? But the project always very complex, right? When you actually doing, so I'm telling you, for infrastructure itself, there is a dedicated team for the infrastructure, right? They don't do the pipeline job, right? I will show you the tools. I will also tell you DevOps is not also not a one only one team. Inside that there are so many other things as well. Okay, so in simple, DevOps is an extension of the agile methodology, which more focuses on continuous delivery, automation, collaboration, communication. That's this is DevOps. And if you want to extend your explanation, you could also say like this. Um, it is also a philosophy of cultural shift. Okay, because we are not doing the things traditionally. Okay, because the developer can do the operations things as well, right? So that's why DevOps is all about this. And here is the summary. You could see the continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous delivery, continuous deployment, continuous monitoring, continuous feedback. Okay, I want to spend 1 minute or few time on this because that's our main focus, right? Here everything is continuous, and we are saying continuous because we have tools in place, right? So I will show you the what continuous integration means when we go to the straight part, right? And testing is also automated, okay, which is not being done in agile or waterfall at all. Then delivery, ensure the product is always in a deployable state. Okay, so delivery, it means if you say, okay, you want my product, okay, let's run the pipeline, directly go to the production. And here is the deployment. Okay, so production environment. So instead of deploying into the development, testing, staging environment, you can directly deploy into the production environment, right? And monitoring is the same, and the feedback is also. So based on the monitoring, we do the automation. We have a tool that immediately sees, okay, whether the application is degrading, performance is going down, or having some problem. All these things we could have the tools for automatic or continuous feedback as well, automation by automation, sorry. And this is about the DevOps, and this is the final word on this key concept and summary. So regardless, any approach you follow, this would be your base. You always do the planning, you always do the design, you always do the deployment, you always do the testing, you always deploy your application. Sorry, here I think I said deployment. Here is the development life section, and deployment, and here we do the maintenance. So all these six phases are remain common any approach you follow, right? So here we do the step by step sequential. And why, as I said, this is called waterfall model, because once water comes down, it is not possible for the water to go back, right? And in, of course, IT, we can do some trick around and we can adjust the code. But as I said, if this is a you're building an aeroplane, right? It's not possible. We cannot do that, right? And in iterative way, so this same approach we cannot follow. So we cannot build our plane using the iterative way, right? Every time, otherwise, what happens? Client will come and say, okay, I don't want this thing. Instead of cushion cover of the seat, let's go ahead with the leather cover of the seat, right? So requirements get changed, then project timeline will get extended as well, right? But nowadays, I mean, it's now, I would say it's not very new. It's, it first it was came in 2008, and now we are in 2025, right? So it's very long, very mature. Many people are already contributed in, I mean, following, and nowadays many companies are following this approach, whether it's a startup or whether it's a very big thing. If you find on the internet the case studies, you will find, I heard about, I think Netflix, 10,000 or 20,000, I don't know how many thousands, but yeah, that many deployment they are doing every day, every day. So you can imagine how much the level of automation they have. That is not only one company, there are so many other companies as well. But it really gives a lot of faster delivery time to the market. So that's how it's solved. Okay, so now I believe you understand what is the connection of this three approach, why I told you. Okay, I start with waterfall model, then why agile, and why the DevOps, right? I didn't tell you about the build, what is release, and what is difference in between this monitoring and operate, and this we will talk in our next part of this. This is the summary, guys, or everything. Take a time to read about it, and in this section we talk about all this point: SDLC, development methodology, and all these three methodology. See, it's very tongue twisting word. All these approaches we discussed, and the key concept and summary already given you. Next we have to talk about, so now we learn how we build our software. Now we will learn how we distribute or make it available to the end user. So guys, it's time. Quickly we take a short break and we'll come back, and then we'll cover all these things. Okay, major part is done. This was the basic. But before I let you go, I want you to ask you, do you have any questions, any confusion, or anything regarding our this part? Waterfall model, agile methodology, DevOps. Okay, thank you, Tarun. Thank you, Anish. Okay, what about else? Ah, okay, abilities. Okay, there is a delay. Okay, so thank you, Francisco. Thank you, Anish. Everybody. Thank you very much. So let's take a